All right. Welcome to the U.S. Real Estate News. My name is Jake Fletcher here in Miami, Florida. Fletcher Group, Remax Advanced Realty, bringing you guys the most important national real estate news every single week. And then at the end of the broadcast, we cover the most important Florida real estate news. So let's jump right into it. All right. The first story of the day today, we're talking about commercial real estate, okay? So this is coming from CNBC. Office real estate market will get back to pre-COVID level in 2025. Cushman & Wakefield. So Cushman & Wakefield is a real estate services company. They're a big company. And so they've kind of put their predictions and analytics out there for people. And their key points here: coronavirus hit to office space will surpass the financial crisis. That's in reference to the 2008 financial crisis, with a net loss of up to 95 million square feet of unoccupied real estate from Q2 2020 to Q3 2021, according to their forecast. The steepest level of vacancies will occur in the US, Canada, and European countries in the coming years at a negative level of over 200 million square feet. That's my cat. Let me... Okay, so the number of permanent remote workers and hybrid workers will increase over time, but population and economic growth, as well as the concentration in knowledge-based work, should lead to a full recovery in the next decade. So I agree and disagree with some of their key takeaways here. So, of course, they have more tools and resources to determine these metrics about the 95 million square feet and so forth, and the 200 million square feet. What I agree and disagree with is I think that they're right in terms of the permanent remote workers and hybrid workers will increase. But I disagree that, let me break it down. So population and economic growth, as well as concentration in knowledge-based work, should lead to full recovery in the next decade. I agree that there's going to be an increase in the population, of course, and I agree that there is going to be an increase in knowledge-based work as well, especially with the continuing rise in automation. What I disagree with is their certainty about economic growth. Okay, so there's nothing written in stone that we're going to have a decade of economic growth. I don't necessarily think that that's a given. Not saying it can't happen, but it's definitely not something I would bank on in terms of my business predictions. Move that out of the way of my cat so he doesn't knock it down. It's a little oil lamp from Israel, I think. So the coronavirus remote work experiment will become a permanent trend, but at some point employees will return to the office in numbers that match the past. I disagree with that. I think really, these offices and or these office-based jobs, the rent that they spend on leasing these office spaces is tremendous. I mean, that's a huge part of their overhead. So, I mean, you really think that these companies aren't going to try to be smart in a way that they can reduce their overhead, including, those rental costs, especially now that they're seeing, how working from home is viable. Now, there's also plenty of evidence out there about how it's not as effective. You don't get as much efficiency out of your workers and so on and so forth. But I do think that there will be a median point, which will result in a median point between efficiency and effectiveness of workers and reducing costs of rent. And there's going to be a median point there that once it settles in, it's not going to be resulting in the same amount of office space being rented as it was, pre-pandemic. Now, also, in addition to that, 1 in 6 businesses are permanently closing in the United States. So, I mean, even if you say only 50% of those have any type of brick and mortar, space, well, okay, then, 1 in 12 places that have some kind of brick and mortar are permanently closed. That's still significant. I mean, that's almost 10%, it's like 8%. So, I just think that they're being a little too confident there. So they say it could take 5 years, according to the new forecast. I think it's going to take longer. Global office vacancies will not return to pre-COVID peak until 2025. And in all, a net 215 million square feet of office vacancy will have been lost due to the pandemic. So, Well, according to the outlook from one of our largest real estate, blah, 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 right? So between Q2 2020 when COVID-19 hit the U.S. and Q3 21, the net negative office square feet damage will reach 95 million square feet, roughly 10 million square feet more than the financial crisis. So, people tend to like to compare what's happening now to the financial crisis, and that's actually a psychological factor because we as human beings have a tendency to want to base our future outlook on past experiences. But the 2008 financial crisis was not caused by a pandemic. There might be some similarities in terms of, results that we're seeing in the market and in the economy and society, in terms of lots of, increase in jobless, the jobless rate, the unemployment rate, people who are jobless, homelessness rate, businesses going under and things like that. But the causes are totally different. So I think that it's kind of a false logic to compare the two. And I think time is going to prove me right on that. So the situation will be worse in the West. Canada and Europe and U.S. recorded a combined loss of 120.5 million square feet occupancy from peak to trough, including Q2 2020, that will reach over 200 million square feet of negative absorption peak to trough in the COVID recession, according to Cushman & Wakefield's analysis. So work from home is very real. So here they're acknowledging the work from home circumstances and situation, but I still feel like being a little more optimistic. So we know this work from home trend is very real, blah, blah, blah said. For the study, Cushman & Wakefield surveyed some of the largest companies around the world in future offices and attempted to measure both cyclical impacts of the COVID recession and structural impacts, assuming a higher increase in work from home. Thorpe said two key findings emerged. First, office lease fundamentals will be significantly impacted and vacancies reach an all-time high. But the second find is more encouraging. The office real estate market will fully recover, according to their study, largely due to employment growth and ongoing shift in the U.S. economy's concentration of certain types of professional jobs. So I agree with the first point. I agree that the fundamentals of office leasing will be significantly impacted. Even the way that these leases are conducted is probably going to be impacted, the way that these buildings are run and managed, and that I think vacancies will reach an all-time high. I don't even think we've seen the worst yet of what we're going to see in our economy. But I completely disagree with the second thing, that the office real estate market will fully recover. Okay, well, I mean, I guess they're saying in 5 years, but I just don't see how that's possible. I mean, you have an uncertain economic outlook that is, who knows how long that's going to take. Not to mention, we still haven't seen the effect from the inflation and Jerome Powell constantly printing money every second of the day for the past 7 months or whatever. The work from home shift, we haven't seen how that's going to ultimately affect businesses in the long term. And just because there will be people starting new businesses and growing their businesses doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be renting office space in order to do that. So I think that they're kind of conflating some different things there and coming up with a conclusion that fits their own kind of narrative, honestly, because, I mean, they're a real estate services company. They're a little bit biased in all this, right? So let me let my cat out. In all, the real estate firm estimates that 82% of the damage will be related to cyclical factors, permanent office job losses, and the rise of co-working, while 18% is related to structural factors, primarily assumptions about permanent remote workers and hybrid workers, those who work remotely some of the time. Continuing on, work from home will double and hybrid workers will increase. Study estimates the share of people working permanently from home from the U.S. and Europe will increase roughly 5 to 6% pre-COVID-19 to between 10 and 11% post-COVID, while the share of hybrid, also referred to as agile workers, will increase from 32% to 36% to just under half of all workers. That just on its face seems super optimistic to me. Really? Pre-COVID was 6%, 5 to 6%, work from home, and it's only going to go up to 10 to 11%. It's only going to be an increase of 5 to 6% max, debatably between 4 to 6%, around there. I just don't see how that's possible. I mean, we hear of huge companies that employ thousands of workers, like Google, Facebook, all these tech companies, and in addition, even some companies like law firms and stuff like that. Maybe they're not, going full on, but they're in this hybrid category, So all in all, we're talking about, between 4 to 6 of work from home, right? And then about 4% of workers who, going into that hybrid or agile, 10%, I think that, maybe 10% is a better assumption for the work from home category, or like 8 to 10%. I think this real number is going to be closer to 15% total. I'm not a statistician. That's just kind of what my gut and what I know about economics and business and what I've read and seen and what's happening on the ground and what, anecdotal evidence and also, statistical analysis as well. So, but again, I don't have the resources that they have, but I think time is gonna bear out that what I'm saying is correct. So, the rest of this is kind of some more specific examples, but basically the biggest loser in terms of real estate during COVID is the commercial space. So I think that we're going to see certain commercial spaces, like office spaces, are going to be absolutely hurt the worst. There are others that I think are not going to be as impacted, like medical offices. I think that flex commercial space with like retail mixed with office spaces, because they tend to be more kind of like social hubs, where people like want to be more. Because I think that does play into it as well. It's not always just about cost; it's about the work environment and all that. So, we'll see, and we'll be keeping an eye on this as well. So, on to the next story. So this story is coming to us from ChicagoBusiness.com. Boeing prepares deeper cuts from exec ranks to real estate holdings. So this is a real estate story, but it's also a story, a greater economic story, and I believe a canary in the coal mine, a harbinger of things to come for some of these bigger companies. And I'm going to talk about what I think that's going to mean. So the biggest and most controversial of the cost-saving measures being considered would be to build the 787 Dreamliner at a single site. So I don't know why, if you had the ability to build it on a single site before, why you would do it on multiple sites. I don't get that business idea, but what do I know about building planes? So Boeing Co. is thinning its core of vice presidents and winnowing real estate holdings, including a splashy outpost near the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, as the plane maker works furiously to counter plunging aircraft sales and mounting costs for the grounded 737 MAX. So that was the airline that had like some kind of black box problem. I think 2 planes crashed. I want to say one of them was, I don't want to say where they were. I believe one of them was in the Middle East somewhere. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was 2 planes that crashed that were 737 MAX, and they've been grounded for like a year or two. About 170 mid-level executives, 70 of them based at Boeing's commercial airplane division, are taking a buyout offer that includes a year's salary. According to people familiar with the matter, the first of the vice presidents and senior managers to accept the terms will leave the company on October 2nd, followed by a second wave later in the year. So, okay, Boeing is having trouble selling their airplanes. Boo-hoo, crying, tears, crocodile tears, because us, taxpayers have been subsidizing them for so long. They're a monolith of American plane making. Now, but what does this story tell us overall? Okay, this story tells us that even these huge companies, these Boeings, and think back in the financial crisis, the car makers, these kind of too big to fail companies, and the airlines too, Delta, American Airlines, stuff like that. I mean, obviously companies go under all the time, but these big companies are much more resilient because obviously they have assets like real estate holdings. They have different warehouses. They have all these executives that apparently they didn't even need 170 of them, or some debatably, I guess, didn't need them, and they're even buying them out. They're offering them a whole year's salary to say, hey, look, here's a year's salary, to carry you over and figure out another job. Side note, wouldn't that be nice if other workers got that, pleasantry of a whole year's salary to go unemployed and find another job. Of course there's unemployment, but I'm sure that these executives are making slightly more than you get paid on unemployment. So what does this mean for real estate? Okay. So these big companies like the Boeings and any of these other companies that are kind of slashing their costs right now, when they go to sell their holdings in real estate, what's going to happen, in my opinion, what my prediction is you're going to have basically, if you think about it logically, all right, but let's say Boeing owns this piece of real estate by MIT, right? Well, who can even afford to buy that? It's going to be basically real estate developers and other large corporations potentially, right? So what we're talking about is sort of a shedding of assets from some of these bloated companies, and then those assets are going to be bought up and sort of consolidated into the holdings of other massive corporations. So it's almost like a shifting of wealth around from one company to another, right? So what does this mean for the consumer? Not a whole lot, other than the fact that you may see, of course, airplane tickets probably are going to be going up because Boeing is going to pass on, their economic woes to the airlines, and then the airlines are going to pass on their economic woes to me and you, right? So I think that if anything, it's just going to mean that we're going to see increased prices of travel. But for these companies, they're going to be okay. They're just going to have to liquidate some holdings, and hey, another day and on the job. So, but it'll be interesting to see how it moves along. So, next story. So this is actually coming from Zillow.com. Zillow, say what you will about their service in terms of providing real estate services to consumers, but they have a lot of data and a lot of people gathering data and come out with good information. So housing is widely exceeding early expectations, but job market remains a big concern. So home prices are expected to go 3.7% in 2020, according to a survey of 104 economists and real estate experts conducted by Pulseonomics and Zillow. 3 months ago, panelists expected a 0.3 decline. So it went from a 0.3% decline to a 3.7% increase. Okay, so they're reacting to the what has been happening. So panelists were also asked when they next expected multifamily housing starts to meet or exceed their pre-pandemic January level of 619,000. A majority, 55%, said that would happen no later than 2023. Experts were far less bullish on a quick labor market recovery, giving just 44% odds that the unemployment rate would match its pre-pandemic low of 3.5% by the end of the decade. So this point right here, the whole unemployment rate thing is it's kind of it's annoying to me because people don't understand that the way that they've changed the metric of the unemployment rate has changed. Okay, so it used to be, and there's different names for the ways that they study the unemployment rates, but it used to be that the unemployment rate included, people who were unemployed and searching for work, people who were unemployed and who were, having trouble finding work for X amount of time, and then people who were unemployed that wanted to work but that gave up because they couldn't find a job. Now they took two of those away to just be people who are actively looking for work, which is ostensibly a lower number than if you combine all of those people together, right? Now, I'm probably not the foremost expert of the world of describing that, but go search it on your own, because what I'm saying is true, even if my terminology isn't scientifically the exact words or whatever. But it's true that in the beginning of the Trump administration is when they changed the way that they measure unemployment, and of course they do this to make the unemployment number look better. So anytime that you've heard in the last 3 years, oh, unemployment is so low, it's so low. Well, that's the unemployment rate that the government is telling us. The actual unemployment rate is much different, and it's much higher. So you have the official unemployment rate, aka the government unemployment rate, and you have the actual unemployment rate. Okay, so expert predictions for near-term home price growth improved markedly in the summer compared to the spring as housing market powered past initial pandemic challenges and grew into an economic bright spot. But even as the housing market remains on largely steady ground, a full labor market recovery could remain out of reach for a decade or more. The Zillow Home Price Expectation Survey, sponsored by Zillow, asked more than 100 economists, investment strategists, and real estate experts for their prediction on the U.S. housing market. Q3 survey focused on the short and long term for home prices and construction activity, as well as expectations for U.S. unemployment. So, like we said, they had expected a 0.3% decline for home prices in 2020, and now it's forecasted, has gone up and increased to 3.7%. Now that is, they're like they say right here, historically low inventory and heavy buyer demand, right? Well, why is a low inventory? Because there's a pandemic going on. Why is there a historically heavy buyer, not historically, but heavy buyer demand? Interest rates are super low, right? And not everybody is struggling financially in this pandemic. Some people are doing better than ever. I can tell you out of what I've seen and talked about with people. So expectations for home prices in 2020 were also raised up to 2.7% average forecasted growth from 0.9% last quarter. So beyond next year, the outlook is cloudier. On average, price growth expectations are down slightly from the last quarter. In dollar terms, panelists expect the U.S. typical U.S. home to be worth $255,000 by the end of the year, on average, climbing the value of $286 by the end of 2024. So here's a little graph that they're showing you, like, okay, here's the Q2 survey. This was when it was like more doom and gloom. And then the Q3 survey where they're like, oh, wait, there's low inventory and buyers are going crazy. And it seems like the market's so hot. So this must gonna, continue for the next 4 years. Well, to me, it's funny how things change over the course of a couple months, I'm not saying any way is wrong or right, but clearly these numbers even these experts are influenced by the circumstances on the ground. So, we saw before, negative 0.3 to only 0.9 to 2.9 to 3.3, 3.6, except for these numbers, home prices on average in the U.S. tend to grow like 3 to 4%, 3 to 5% every year. So these numbers, they were expecting like 3 years of slow growth, and then only marginally getting better. Just a few months later, they're saying, oh no, even by the end of this year, we're going to see 3.7% increase, which is roughly in line with like what's normal. And then in 2021, 2022, 2023, we're going to see more ramifications, even 2024, and so I think that the expectation here is that we're going to see a longer slowdown in the economy, and that's going to be reflected in home prices. So, but that doesn't take into account if the virus continues to be a threat and people continue to not list their homes for sale on as much, then we may continue to see a shortage of inventory for a long time to come. That doesn't mean nobody's selling. It just means that the amount of people selling is low enough that the demand is much higher, thus causing the prices to continue to go up. I mean, it's supply and demand. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it seems like their assumption is that there's not going to be a continued threat of the virus. I personally think that this is going to affect our society for longer. I think that we have more problems with it than I can enumerate in this short segment, but we'll see. So going on to the next story here. So caution, a housing crisis could be coming for these 10 cities. With no end in sight to the coronavirus pandemic and job losses and financial pain the crisis has wrought, millions of U.S. homeowners are behind on their mortgage payments and struggling to hang on to their abodes. So this story is coming from Realtor.com. They're basically pointing out the 10 cities that are kind of most at risk of having a housing crisis, and what they're mainly kind of basing this on in this article is the amount of mortgages that are delinquent. So first-time minority and lower-income homeowners are among those most at risk of losing their homes. About 17.4% of the roughly 8 million Federal Housing Administration mortgages, that's FHA, primarily made to these more vulnerable borrowers were delinquent in August. Roughly 11.2% of FHA loans were seriously delinquent. Put another way, that means 1.4 million households are in danger of losing their homes if they can't begin making their mortgage payments again in the near future. FHA loans cater to borrowers who often have lower credit scores and higher debt loads. These loans, whose required down payments are as low as 3.5% in many instances, made up about 15% of all mortgages in 2019. Certain metropolitan areas are more at risk than others. Atlanta's metro region has the highest number of delinquent mortgages, according to a recent analysis of federal mortgage data from the Housing Center at American Enterprise Institute, a right-leaning think tank based in Washington, D.C. These late payments could eventually turn into foreclosures if the economy doesn't turn around. So Atlanta is in trouble there, canary in the coal mine, right? FHA loans are the canary in the coal mine, which could be signaling greater trouble ahead, said Tobias, I don't know how you say that name. I think it's Tobias Peter, Director of Research for the Housing Center. These are the loans that would be the first ones to go delinquent. So, I mean, I don't think that's like accurate to say carte blanche. I can't talk today. These are the loans that would be the first to go delinquent. Well, they are among the loans, but there's also conventional loans that are going delinquent. There's all kinds of delinquency in every type of loan. But I think what he's trying to say is that these are the loans that will be the first ones to go delinquent in like greater numbers, or there will be greater numbers of these type of loans to go delinquent first. So those with government mortgages are eligible for up to 12 months of mortgage forbearance, allowing them to postpone their payments. Unclear at this point whether the program will eventually be extended if the economy doesn't improve. If the Atlanta metro area, which is where I'm originally from, actually, more than 53,000 FHA loans are delinquent. Metros include the main city and surrounding towns, suburbs, and smaller areas. FHA loans make up about 21.2% of all mortgages in the ATL. The Houston metropolitan area had the second highest number of delinquent FHA loans. It was followed by Chicago, Washington, D.C., Dallas, Riverside, California, Baltimore, San Antonio, Texas, Orlando, Florida, and Tampa, Florida. So, yeah, this is kind of interesting because it's all spread around the country. You got from Atlanta and some southern places like Tampa, Orlando, Washington, D.C., up to Baltimore, and then even across the country, Texas, Riverside, California, Dallas, and San Antonio, Texas, Riverside, California, Chicago. So, from middle America to the Northeast, to the Southeast, to the West Coast, cities all around the country, it seems like there are potential housing crises. And these are just loans. This isn't even talking about delinquent renters, which is a whole nother topic. The late payments aren't surprising as the nation had an 8.4 unemployment rate in August. Remember, that's the official unemployment rate. The actual unemployment rate is actually closer to, according to what I have read, about 20%, which is similar to what the Great Depression was. So, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, those working in food service, retail, and tourism, and the hospitality and leisure industries suffered some of the highest job losses. Okay, so food service, retail, and tourism, and hospitality and leisure. So what is Orlando known for? Oh yeah, that's right, Disney World. So tourism, hospitality, leisure, right? What is California known for, right? What is Washington D.C. known for, other than politics? These are all kind of like destination cities that their economies rely a lot on tourism. I don't know a ton about San Antonio or Baltimore or Riverside, California, but I know for sure, maybe with Chicago and Atlanta being kind of exceptions, that they have their own kind of industries going on that probably support the bulk of their economies. But some of these cities, Orlando, Tampa, Dallas, Washington, D.C., Chicago, those are touristy kind of cities. Not Chicago, not as much it is, but, they have, like I said, their own kind of industries going on. So, I mean, maybe it's not the bulk of their source of revenue, but definitely, I mean, Orlando for sure is being hurt by that big time. I know Dallas has a big food service industry as well. It's a big food city, so not super surprising. So, as of September 22nd, roughly 3.6 million homeowners, making up about 6.8% of mortgages, were enrolled in forbearance programs as a result of the pandemic, according to Black Knight, a technology data and analytics company. That's down 7% from the prior week. Communities of color could be the most affected by another foreclosure crisis. Yeah, I mean, this is stuff that we kind of already knew, but now it's starting to actually... it's starting to become like a bigger red flag. So we're going to keep our eyes on that. So... All right. So I had to actually record this in segments because I had to go do a showing and then write an offer. So life of a real estate agent, let's keep it moving. So the next story here is one that I've seen recently last week on a couple different news sites. This one's coming from floridarealtors.org. So it's waiving inspections. Good for bidding wars, but worth it? Question mark. An inspection costs a few $100s now, yet could save buyers tens of thousands of dollars later, or a lot more than that. Still, bidding wars and an inspector shortage have stifled demand. So basically the concept of this article is they're saying, hey, because the market is so hot, there's so much competition from buyers that you're going to be almost certainly going into a bidding war, especially for single family homes. And because of that, you may want to consider as a bargaining chip foregoing your inspection, which makes it more attractive of an offer to the seller. I could not recommend this less. I could not poo-poo this idea more. So the part of it is, there's a shortage of inspectors. Okay, well, your agent should write the inspection deadline appropriately, right? So if it takes 3 weeks to get an inspector, well, for the listing agent, if they were selling a property, it would take the same amount of time, right? So they should be able to understand, hey, look, we need a longer inspection period because there's no inspectors available. Now, personally for me in Miami-Dade, I have not had any problem at all getting inspectors to come out, especially, during the beginning of COVID when closings were down. I mean, you could get an inspector out to a place same day. But even now, when after closings have picked up again, I can get an inspector out to a property in like 5 days max. I mean, there hasn't been a situation where it's taken longer than that to get an inspector out to a property. And I'm talking, comprehensive inspection with sewer scope and the whole nine. So I think that this is terrible advice. I really wish I wasn't seeing this article. So that's why I wanted to make sure to talk about it so that, people know not to listen to this, anybody who's saying, hey, to make your offer better, forego your inspection. I don't feel like I need to get into all the reasons why you should do an inspection. It's, it seems to be pretty common sense. I mean, you don't know what could be wrong with the house. What if they go and they find that, in the roof, there's like a ton of asbestos or there's mold or all these things that you just can't see with the naked eye. And then, what are you going to do? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. This whole situation with the bidding wars and the inspector shortage and Find your inspector, get a good agent that has relationships with inspectors that if you do end up having a short inspection period, that they can get somebody out there quick. Because I know multiple inspectors. If the first few that I normally recommend can't get out there within 15 days, which is a normal inspection period, then I know I have inspectors that I can call that can get out there quickly because they're more mom and pop. So, this is really bad advice. Moving on. Also coming from Florida Realtors here, suburban home prices move higher as buyers get out of town. So this is a story that I've been talking about on my YouTube channel and different, videos and Instagram, TV and all that stuff for a minute now since the pandemic started. where because of the work from home shift and because of rising home prices, the ability of people to move to more suburban areas, we're seeing a shift into those suburban areas. More people are wanting to move to those suburban areas. More people are looking at those suburban areas and rural areas too, for that matter. And more people are searching for homes in those type of areas versus urban areas. So nationally, home prices in the suburbs have moved 3.2% higher since March compared to an overall 2.3% within cities, according to a Realtor.com analysis. In South Florida, however, prices in urban areas declined 2.2% since March, while suburban prices are up 0.3%. Now, here in South Florida, this is the decline in urban areas is mostly been fueled by an oversupply of condos and a move out of condo lifestyle into single family home lifestyle. So, when you combine both of those housing types together, you get a cumulative negative percentage. But if you just showed single family homes in urban areas, you would see an increase, just to give you context. So, Santa Clara, California pandemic-era push from cities to suburbs indicates a higher rate of price increases in areas outside U.S. cities. While housing markets in both suburban and urban areas recovered rapidly post-COVID shutdown, suburban markets had more interest from home shoppers, stronger improvement of price growth, and quicker home sales in urban areas this summer, according to analysis by Realtor.com. All that's true. In one of the most seismic shifts to the U.S. workforce since the introduction of the internet, many U.S. workers now have the flexibility to work remotely and choose where they want to live. This is also true, and I've seen the proof of it on the ground. Data shows in our post-COVID world there's a strong preference toward a suburban lifestyle with its bigger houses, backyards, and quiet streets. But American cities are not becoming ghost towns anytime soon. In fact, they're also seeing an uptick of home buyers. It's just not as strong as the surge we're seeing in the suburbs. So this is also true. I wouldn't have worded it the same. Like the post-COVID world, there's a strong preference toward a suburban lifestyle. I mean, what do you mean by lifestyle? It's not necessarily that people are like, oh, all of a sudden I want a suburban lifestyle. It's more that, like they say later on, you get more house for your money. You have more privacy and more space between you and your neighbors. Those are the things I'm personally hearing from buyers across the board. It's not that they're like, oh, I want to live on a quiet street. Okay, maybe, but it's more so that they want privacy. They want their space from neighbors and people. They want to have their own little area. The backyard, I agree with. I've heard that. And the bigger houses, yes, that kind of comes with the territory when you're buying a single family home for the most part. But people want more house for their money. They want that land. They want that space from their neighbors. And that's what I've been hearing and what most other agents I've talked to are also echoing. Historically, home prices have grown faster in urban areas than suburbs, but suburban prices have accelerated 3.2% since the first week of March, the general start of the pandemic, compared to an acceleration of only 2.3% for urban areas. Within the nation's top 10 largest metros, median listing price suburban properties now at 5.2% year over year. In urban areas, it's up by only 2.4%. Time on the market. At the peak of the pandemic in April, the time a typical property spent on the market spiked in both suburban and urban areas. Following the real estate freeze, the time it took to sell a suburban home recovered faster. Suburban homes spent only 28.5% more time on the market in early May compared to last year, whereas urban homes spent 34.1% more time on market. As the housing market accelerated in the summer months, properties began to sell at an unprecedented fast pace in both suburban, 11.4% faster year over year, year to year, and urban areas, 8% faster. The difference between urban and suburban homes was even more pronounced within the nation's top 10 largest metros. Suburban homes spent 16.2% less time on the market compared to last year, while urban homes spent 10.4% less time. So, yeah, I think that I have seen that in these facts that they're putting out there. I have seen that validated by what I've experienced on the market, based on the rising popularity of the burbs. I can't believe they quoted that. Some buyers might think they can catch a break by searching in the city, but unfortunately that's not the case. Rising home prices and fast home sales are everywhere. If you're a buyer in today's market, finding and closing on your dream home is not going to be easy. I disagree with her there. If you work with me, it will be easy. Maybe with some other realtors, not so much, but I make it easy for my clients. So yeah, tooting my own horn there. So number of listings, currently the number of suburban homes for sale is down 41.3% compared to last year. That's important, okay? While urban homes for sale are down 34.3%. So that's very important, right? We've seen that since March. We've seen that since the beginning of COVID, that there has been a consistent decrease year over year with new listings, which brings active listings down, okay? The divergence in available homes began in early April. I would say it began a little bit sooner than that here in Miami. It was pretty much mid-March. It was right away. During the peak of COVID-19 shutdowns continued, blah, blah. Within the nation's 10 largest metros, the divide of the number of suburban and urban listings is even greater. The number of suburban homes for sale are currently down 40.2% compared to last year, whereas suburban homes are down 13.4%. Okay, so only one Florida metro area made the top 10 list cities analyzed by Realtor.com. South Florida, the Miami-Dade, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach. Listing price growth in urban areas was down 2.2%, while it was up 0.3% in the burbs, as they say. Listing inventory was down 3.9% year over year downtown, but it was down 20.6% in the suburbs. I almost said burbs again. In addition, time a home spent on the market was up 4.5% in urban areas, down 5.9% in the burbs. So, again, like I said earlier, they're combining housing types, single family home and condos. The two types of housing, if you were to separate them in the metrics that they're analyzing, you would have two totally different looking numbers. Okay, so your listing price growth in urban areas in Miami-Dade is definitely not down 2.2%. It's for single family homes, it's up like last time I checked, it was up like 3 or 4% since the beginning of the year. And for condos, it's gone down about the same amount, about 3-ish%. So, and there's a lot more condos on the market, hence why you have a greater retraction. And then it was up 0.3% in the suburbs. Again, you still have condos in the suburbs. So that's kind of pulling that number down, because in the suburbs, you're going to still see a pretty similar increase in single family home pricing. So, kind of continuing that story that I've been talking about this for a while, this shift to the suburbs. A lot of people have been talking about it, and I think some of it's a little bit overblown. I think some people are like, oh my God, everybody, the cities, some people are thinking, oh my gosh, the cities are going to be ghost towns, and, there's going to be all these empty buildings and da-da-da-da-da. That's not really how it works. That's not how the market works. There's still people looking for condos. I'm helping people looking for condos and single family homes right now. Well, not right now. I'm recording a video, but in the moment, in over the recent times here in the last few days, including today. So this story is, another one we're going to have to just keep our eye on it, see how it pans out. I don't think that it's going to be this extreme, suburbs are going to be like 50 times larger than they ever were. And I don't think it's going to go that hard, but I do think there's going to be a continued shift to the burbs, as they call it, as the work from home precedent continues. So next story coming from FloridaRealtors.org. Again, we love them. Almost 400,000 fewer homes listed due to the pandemic. So this is kind of expanding on something we just talked about in the last story, which is that there's just been a continued decrease year over year of new listings, which also affects the number of current active listings in a negative trend. So from March to now, Realtor.com listings are down about 400,000. In 3 Florida metros, it's down over 40%. In 2 others, time on market dropped more than 20 days. So how much has the U.S. housing inventory declined? Since the beginning of COVID pandemic in March, nearly 400,000 fewer homes have been listed on Realtor.com compared to last year, according to Realtor.com's blah, blah, blah. As a result, Realtor.com home prices are accelerating at twice the pace they did last year. So I'm going to read that again. As a result of the decrease in new listings, Realtor.com home prices are accelerating at twice the pace they did last year, and homes are selling on average of 12 days faster. That's considerable. 12 days might not seem like a lot, but when you're under contract and you have inspectors coming and appraisers and the deals going on, 12 days is a lot. So to see those houses getting into that contract phase 12 days sooner, that's nice for sellers. That's really nice. In Florida, the listing decline on Realtor.com ranges from 14.9% drop in the South Florida metro area to plummet of 44.9 in Jacksonville. Listings time on the market has also declined in all Florida metro areas, with less than the national average of 5 of the 9 listed, though the Northport Sarasota Bradenton listings spend 21 fewer days on market than they did before the pandemic hit. So that's a poppin' area. Here we can see the decline median days on market from 2019 to 2020. Cape Coral listings down 32.8, 20 days fewer. Let's just go down to the one that matters. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm down 14.9% as far as the new listings, and 5 fewer days on the market. So believe it or not, in like a late March through April and most of May, this number was actually in the 30% and 40% for condos and single families respectively. There was more of a drop in the single families than there was in the condos. So we'll give Orlando, Kissimmee a little shout out. I don't know what Sanford is. I guess I was up there. So that's down 20.4%, 7 fewer days on market. Tampa, St. Petersburg down 45.1% and 10 fewer days on market. So, I mean, that's crazy, man. I mean, if you're looking to sell a house in any of these markets, you're like the king of the hill. You have very little competition. Your home is going to sell quicker for more money. And if you're in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, that's especially the case because you can call me. Going on here, sellers are more reluctant to list their homes given the uncertainty of the economy and the pandemic environment. A lot of people don't know that as realtors, we've kind of circumnavigated the safety issues with proper sanitization, requiring people to wear masks, gloves, booties, having all the doors open and lights on and telling people, hey, don't touch anything. And then after people leave, after the open houses are done or the showings are done, do a little sanitization situation. At least I'm doing that for my sellers. Probably I guarantee you not everybody's doing that. So again, make sure that you have a good listing agent. If you're in Miami-Dade, his name is Jake Fletcher. And his number is 305-812-9181. So national impact since mid-March, the beginning of COVID pandemic, total of 2.91 million unique properties have been put on the market for sale, about 390,000 fewer than the 3.3 million listed during the same period last year. Currently, the number of homes on the market is down 39% compared to last year. So, I mean, that is very, very significant. So, I'm expecting, and I've talked about this a little bit, I'm expecting to see more new inventory after the first of the year, mainly because time will have passed. Hopefully COVID will have, if at very least, died down a little bit by then. And also people, I think, are kind of delaying a little bit. We're almost on the holidays, in Miami-Dade, your new listings during the holidays tends to be about 10% less than the average throughout the year. And then people tend to, list after the first of the year. So I think that there's going to be an even greater number of people who list after the first of the year than there normally is, because there will have been people who are kind of holding off, and then they're going to be like, all right, the holidays are over, we're done with it. We just need to sell. Let's get it on the market. Let's go. So I think that in conjunction with, I think we will also be seeing investment properties. There's going to be landlords that are getting sick and tired of tenants and toilets, and they're going to be putting their properties on the market as well. So, that's a whole nother topic I could talk about a lot. So next story here. This one is kind of, it's not the most real estate centric story, but it is a Florida story, and it does have real estate impacts. So Florida lags in census count, putting funding at risk. So the main reason I'm doing this story is because if you haven't filled out your census information yet, make sure you do it, okay? So the census ends soon, and Florida lags most states with only 92.5% counted. An undercount can impact political representation and Fed funding for the next 10 years. That's a decade, people. Barring a change, the 2020 U.S. Census stops counting on September 30th. They're trying to push it back right now another month. We'll see if it happens. I think today was the deadline. Today's the 30th. I'm recording this. I don't know if I'll upload it tonight or tomorrow, but we'll see. And Florida has 92.5% of the citizens counted so far. Only 8 other U.S. states have a lower percentage: Alabama, Arizona, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, New Mexico, and North Carolina. Federal government uses the once per decade count of its in many of its decisions, including the number of representatives the state has in the U.S. House of Representatives and the portion of federal money it receives from a wide range of federal programs. That's where this comes into real estate. Realtors are U.S. Census partners in 2020 and encouraged to push Floridians to respond. While Census Bureau employees are now reaching out directly to uncounted households, Floridians can still respond online using the Bureau's self-respond online form, okay? So I'll hover over that. And I'll put a link to it in the comments too. Why not? We have 5,000 traveling enumerators, blah, blah, blah. They have people and they're sending them around. So this is a quick story. I just wanted to make sure to get it out there so that people know if you haven't filled out the census yet, make sure you do it so that, we're counted accurately. We get the funding that we need for certain programs and we have the proper representation in the House of Representatives. All right. So do it. All right. Next story. This one's coming from Inman.com. This is a fun one. I always like to end with a fun story or a crazy story or whatever. America's biggest artificial surf park is coming to Florida, along with 800 new homes. Willow Lakes, a 200-acre development, will include at least 800 residential homes, 600 hotel rooms, 400,000 square feet of retail, and 125,000 square feet of office space. I wonder if they'll be trying to alter those office space numbers after seeing how things have shaken out, because I heard about this story, this development. The first time I heard about it was a couple years ago, so that was like their plan then, and that was before a pandemic, obviously. So we'll see if maybe they recertify the use. So the country's largest simulating surfing park and a mixed-use development project are rolling with the tide into Fort Pierce, Florida. So Fort Pierce, Florida is like 2 hours north of Miami on the East Coast, maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Orlando. It's right there in the middle. Willow Lakes, a 200-acre community development will include, we just read that. In total, the project is anticipated to create about 3,400 jobs during the construction phase and about 1,900 jobs annually, according to the Economic Development Council of St. Lucie County. That's the county it's in. There's a nice little picture of the surf park. Looks pretty dope, especially if COVID is over and you can go there without getting a pandemic or without getting a virus. Okay, so that's, pretty much the story. We'll kind of read a little bit more in here, just have some fun. So first phase, which will run $40 million, will feature the Waive Garden, the simulated surfing park, food and beverage facility, and possibly a 150-room hotel. Surfing center alone dubbed Surfworks Resorts is anticipated to create 139 jobs, 15.6 million economic impact on an annual basis, according to Economic Development Council. Developers anticipate the project to cost $595 million in total and are currently planning to start construction in the third quarter of 2021, pending the passage of all permits and approvals. Project is expected to produce $8.7 million in impact fees, not including the Waive Garden itself, according to the city documents. Sweeping zoning changes were unanimously approved by city commissioners to make way for Willow Lakes, will be located on the West Midway Road at Interstate 95. They said, come on, bring us the money. This is probably one of the biggest things that could happen to us, Commissioner Thomas Perona said. It's a small town. Willow Lakes manager Chad Labonte has owned the land on West Midway Road since 2004 and was seeking out what he called a destination project, but was halted when the Great Recession hit in 2008. Although there are a few Waive Gardens currently operating across the globe, England, Wales, and Australia. Dozens are also in development stage, but Willow Lakes would be the largest. So, America, got to do it, But that's it. I mean, that's the rendering of what it would look like. I don't personally surf. I know people that do, but I would go check it out. I wonder why they, were doing it in Fort Pierce versus like trying to piggyback off of Orlando. I mean, I know the guy owned the land, but seems like maybe you'd make more revenue if you were near Disney World. I don't know. So the wave pool will create up to 1,000 waves per hour. That's a lot of waves, and can accommodate about 100 surfers. Waves of differing shapes and sizes will be created for surfers of all abilities. So I would be like the littlest baby wave. Capacity for the amount of housing to be included in the development is still in flux, depending on what the city ultimately allows. However, the developer has suggested 1,000 residential buildings, 700 multifamily homes, 150 single-family townhouses, 150 detached family homes, single-family detached homes. It's really planned as a whole new coastal community, which is several miles away from the coast. Jeff Fitzgerald, land planner and development company Bowler, told Treasure Coast News it's planned around a wave garden. City officials have high hopes the project will launch economic growth in the local community. Willow Lakes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, it's fun. It's a surf garden. It's a wave garden, whatever you want to call it. It's a tourist attraction. We needed one more in Florida, apparently. I'll probably go check it out, though. I mean, why not? Something fun to do. You kind of have the ocean right there, so they have a pretty big built-in competition, but the ocean isn't always conducive to good surfing, so, surf's up. See you guys next time. Sell smart, buy bold, and let me know if you guys need any help with real estate. I am definitely here to help you guys out all across the world. All my information is below. Follow me on Instagram at jake.miami, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.